this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so in this episode, we're introduced to Nagisa's mother, Hiromi Shiota, and, well, I'll get to her in a minute, but let's just say she is not a pleasant person. That's the least I can say about her until I actually get to her and her role in this episode. So, it starts off with everybody filling out their career aptitude forms. And everybody is trying to figure out what exactly they want to be when they grow up. And while they're filling them out, Irina actually walks in wearing a new sweater vest, and everybody points out how she's growing as a person and how she's decided to dress up a bit more modestly. Although some of the guys openly admit that the fact that she is now covering herself up makes her hotter somehow, because apparently it leaves more to the imagination because kids are horny. But in any case she points out that she's a little bit surprised that Core Sensei is actually giving everybody career counseling, and that everybody is just kind of basically everybody's just kind of a little bit confused as well, because Core Sensei is admittedly going to blow up the earth. What do they need career counseling for at all? But in any case, they begin to fill out their forms, and Nagisa finds out that Ryo Nakamura actually filled out Nagisa's form while he wasn't looking, and gives her an earful about it, pointing out that she shouldn't have done that, and that's his future she's messing with. And she just declares that male work doesn't really suit him, and case in point, she filled out a whole bunch of things that a woman would be able to do. So, yeah, she just kind of did that to mess with him. But in case after he cleans up his form, he begins to wonder, what does he want to actually do? And he doesn't even really know what he wants to be. But in any case, it then starts off with everybody going into career counseling. Karma's the first one on the list. And Karma apparently wants to be a bureaucrat. So, and while Core Sensei is admittedly a little confused, pointing out that Karma has a bit of a fiery temperament and is a bit of a sadist, and points out that why he would want to choose a career such as that. At which point Karma points out that while all the politicians do their best to smooth things over, it's mainly the bureaucrats working behind the scenes who pull the strings and make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible, and that the politicians are just kind of talking heads, as it were, to just kind of assuage people's fears. And Core Sensei takes back what he said, pointing out that the fact that being able to pull strings and make things better from behind the scenes is actually a perfect fit for Karma. And as Karma leaves, he tells Terasuga that he shouldn't wind up being a politician, pointing out that he would be way too easy a puppet for somebody to manipulate. And Terasuga brushes it off and then wonders who asked when he would be a politician. And then also we get to Ryo Nakamura. So, as it turns out, this is actually how we find out how Ryo wound up being an E-class. So, as it turns out, she's actually a certifiable genius. And that she originally was and that she plans to be a diplomat to make up for the fact that she wound up in E-class because basically she was always several grades above her level, but she always desired to goof off and make friends. And when she got into Kunigigaka, she decided to do just that. But as a result of that, her grades started to slip because she started playing dumb, and then it stopped being an act. So she realized, and now she's realizing that she needs to apply herself more if she has any chance of actually reestablishing herself as a genius. And Core Sensei can't help but be a little bit moved by that, pointing out that he does feel like that she has potential and could actually apply herself. But in any case, as Core Sensei is doing that, some of Nagisa's friends point out that Irina apparently left her tag on the back of her sweater, and is currently completely oblivious to the fact that she left the tag on. And Sugino even points out that that's likely that she's not really good at buying off the rack, and likely didn't know that you're supposed to remove the tag once you actually put their new clothes on, and wonders if somebody should tell her. But Nagisa says that he'll take care of it, and then without even alerting her that he's there, he just kind of walks up, takes the tag off, and then leaves without her ever noticing that he was there. So yeah, he's actually pretty effective at the whole sneaking up on people thing. We've established this. It's actually a really good talent he has, but sure enough, it's also the reason why he's so skeptical about what he wants to be, because he has no idea. At which point, it's finally time for him to go to his career counseling session with Koro Sensei, and he lays all of his issues bare on the table. He's considering being an assassin since it's the only thing he's really good at. And Koro Sensei points out the concern, pointing out that he does feel like that he does know that Nagisa definitely has the aptitude to become a pro assassin, and he's definitely shown his skills in multiple situations up to this point. We've seen it firsthand, so we know. But Koro Sensei also points out that Nagisa doesn't seem to have any sort of confidence, and often engages people because he feels like he doesn't have anything to lose. So he realized that so he asked Nagisa to go do some soul searching, and once they've done that, then he'll speak to Nagisa again. At which point the day ends and Nagisa goes home. At which point we'll finally meet Hiromi, who points out that Nagisa is actually not doing very well in school as a result of the midterms. Pointing out that he missed the cutoff to get back into the main campus. But points out that there was another kid in a similar situation, that they were able to actually buy his way back in, and decides that she's going to use the bribe herself to actually buy Nagisa's way back in, and that he's going to be leaving E-class fairly soon. And Nagisa comes forward pointing out that he doesn't want to leave E-class for obvious reasons, but before he can even get a word in edgewise, she quickly snaps, and Nagisa realizes that she's in a mood. And case in point, she immediately just grabs Nagisa by the head and starts pulling on his pigtails and pointing out just how much work she actually put into raise Nagisa. And through her tirades, we quickly find out that she's borderline obsessed with making Nagisa a perfect student. As we find out throughout her episode of her laying out all the plans for Nagisa and how she actually plans to make Nagisa's life perfect, we find out that in actuality she's not so much trying to go with what's best for Nagisa, but rather that she's doing all the things that she wasn't able to do when she was Nagisa's age, and is just kind of imprinting them onto Nagisa and trying to make Nagisa into another version of her. So yeah, needless to say, she's very overbearing. But in any case, after pointing out that she's been trying to raise Nagisa to be basically exactly like her, she then points out that she's going to meet with his teacher tomorrow, and point out that she's going to arrange for the transferal to out of E-class, which catches Nagisa completely off guard, pointing out that he's likely busy and isn't going to be able to show up. But she doesn't really listen to that either. And Nagisa quickly realizes he's in a catch-22 situation because he realizes, well, first and foremost, that one of his teachers is, an octopus, a superhuman super being that's capable of destroying the planet. That might be a bit of a problem to just go and confront. But in any case, he calls up Koro Sensei about it and points out all the problems. And Koro Sensei quickly realizes the situation, realizing that because Nagisa's mother is a little bit overbearing, and also it's heavily implied that's the reason Nagisa's dad left. We saw him briefly, but he's not really a major character in the series. It's the reason his dad left is because, as we've established, Hiromi is a bit overbearing and crazy. So yeah, basically he asked Koro Sensei for advice on how to move forward, and Koro Sensei points out that he'll be more than willing to help with the parent-teacher conference. And the next day, Nagisa explains everything to the rest of Class 3E, and Nagisa's friends quickly point out that they know his mother can be a bit temperamental and a bit rough, but that they know she's going, but that they know that they can actually handle it. At which point Irina brings up the point that why doesn't she just meet with Hiromi and kind of just talk her down and try to figure out what the root of this problem. But Tokoyata and a couple of the other girls point out that well, long story short, apparently Karasuma is the one that's officially their teacher. So apparently his name is on the form. Apparently his name is in the paperwork. He's officially the teacher, the head teacher. And that makes sense. He is running the entire operation for the Assassination Corps Sensei, so it makes sense that he would actually be their teacher, quote unquote. But the main problem with that is that if any other teacher tries to talk with Hiromi, it'll look a bit off, and the parents will quickly point it out. At which point, Corps Sensei shows up and offers a solution. And as it turns out, his idea is to impersonate Tadaomi Karasuma so that he can actually use that to dissuade Nagisa and Nagisa's mother and just try and calm her down a bit. So, and I should point out his disguise isn't very convincing, but it'll work well enough that it'll actually maybe work. And sure enough, Hiromi shows up and meets in the faculty room with Karasuma to discuss Nagisa's future. And Nagisa and sure enough, Corps Sensei begins to discuss everything with Hiromi, pointing out that what her concerns are and regarding Nagisa. And Hiromi just kind of points out that she plans to get him out of E-class so that they can get him on a fast track to a good school. And when Corps Sensei, as Karasuma, asks Hiromi if she's discussing with Nagisa, she points out that Nagisa is just a kid and doesn't know what he wants, and that she's his mother and she knows best. So at which point Corps Sensei finally gets a good understanding of what exactly Nagisa's home life is like. At which point he takes off the toupee that he's been using as a disguise for Karasuma, pointing out that he's actually bald. And then lays everything bare to Hiromi, pointing out that Nagisa she knows that Hiromi works hard to actually kind of provide for Nagisa and make him a better person, but also points out that Nagisa has to be willing to make his own decisions and needs to be able to assert himself every once in a while, and even points out that to Nagisa that if he's more open with his feelings, that he should be able to finally come forward with his mother and talk to her. At which point Hiromi just kind of snaps. Basically the gist of it is that she's upset at Corps Sensei for inserting himself and talking that way to her as a parent. But she kind of just flies off the handle just a little bit, and everybody can hear her screaming. She literally the entire class and everybody who was eavesdropping out of the window, they can hear her from outside and even across the school. So yeah, needless to say, she's loud. And at which point she leaves in a huff and goes home. And finally Nagisa points out that this is the reason why he's been having such a hard time asserting himself, because, well, his mother doesn't listen to anything he says, and he even points that out to Corps Sensei, pointing out that he's willing to talk to her, but that she just kind of treats him as a rerun of her own RPG world, and that he's just round 2 for her. At which point Corps Sensei points out that he shouldn't sell himself short, because as he points out, Nagisa's round 1, as he puts it, started in the assassination classroom, and that he's been slowly building his skills since then. So he really shouldn't be too worried about what his mother thinks, and that if he does communicate himself more clearly, that he should be more than able to actually be a match for his mother and finally get her to hear him and hear his concerns. At which point Nagisa thanks Corps Sensei for his advice, and he heads home as well. And later that night, he arrives home for dinner, and Hiromi points out that she's sorry for snapping that way, but then points out that she just feels like someone would got in her way of her perfect idea, and that she's going to take care of it. And then Nagisa passes out and was apparently drugged by his mother. So yeah, this should show you just how crazy his mother actually is. She drugs him, drags him back to the school, back to the old campus, and then brings with him a torch and a bunch of gasoline, and then tries to hand the torch to Nagisa and tells him to burn the school to the ground. And Nagisa is very openly against the idea, pointing out that he doesn't want to burn his school down, and that this is taking it too far. But Hiromi doesn't care. She doesn't even listen, pointing out that if he burns the school to the ground, then not only would the guilt prevent him from actually seeing his E-class friends ever again, but that with no satellite campus, the main campus would be forced to take him back. So she basically, her idea is that she's going to make Nagisa commit arson to get him out of E-class. Yes, that is why she's crazy. That is why I opened this review with the premise of she's nuts. She doesn't really fire on all cylinders. And when Nagisa again tries to assert himself, she merely snaps again, pointing out that she made him the man he's supposed to be, and that she's worked her ass off to basically provide a perfect life for him so that he can become the man she always wanted him to be, and that he basically owes her for that. But as they're arguing, an assassin with a whip shows up. He breaks the torch. And points out that Core Sensei is about to show up for his Wednesday programs, pointing out that apparently he uses Ritsu's IFA to actually stream his programs on Wednesday night, and he sneaks into the campus to do that. And that when he comes by, he's going to attack him with his whip and assassinate him that way. And when Hiromi tries to call the police, the man merely swats away her phone, pointing out that the entire thing is null and void if he attacks a kid, but he has no problem attacking somebody else. At which point Nagisa decides that he's going to actually step in to actually defend his mother, pointing out that she's afraid, that he can feel her fear, and that he feels like the assassin's guard is likely down. So, as he approaches the assassin, he begins to make his move to stop him and save his mother. He declares that he finally declares that he's going to actually succeed at this class. He's been learning a bunch of skills at the class, and that he will eventually succeed. And then once he graduates, he's going to cut his hair and finally be, well, a boy. So, at which point he uses his stun clap to knock out the assassin and then takes him out while he's stunned. And Hiromi can only look at her son in fear and disbelief, realizing that her son is kind of grown up a little bit and isn't entirely sure what kind of person he is anymore. At which point, Kurasuma shows up. It's Koro Sensei, and he shows up and diffuses the situation, pointing out that the building is actually a hangout for a bunch of unsavory individuals, and that they should avoid the place at night. And also, he gives an aside to Nagisa, pointing out that he heard that he was basically going to declare his intent to kill Core Sensei by the end of by March, and Core Sensei merely points out that he just wishes Nagisa good luck. And by which point he finally points out that Nagisa is his own person, that he should be allowed to grow and develop as a person rather than just live in his mother's shadow for the rest of his life. And Hiromi can't really fathom that. She kind of collapses, partly because she realizes that her son is no longer going to follow blindly in her footsteps anymore, and she can no longer control him. And also combine that with a shock, and she just kind of passes out. At which point Core Sensei volunteers to drive the two home, and as they're driving, something that I didn't think Core Sensei could do, but apparently having like 8 feet and a couple hundred hands makes him a great driver. I don't know. But as he's driving Nagisa home, he hopes that Nagisa will be able to actually use what he's learned to actually better himself as a person, pointing out that and Nagisa declares that he has, as he turns out, he was originally wanted to be an assassin, but after seeing what he can do to use his skills to help people, he's realizing now that he doesn't want to be an assassin. He just wants to be able to help people and find something that his parents will actually be proud of. And Kura Sensei solemnly nods at that, pointing out that that's an admirable goal to strive for. At which point they get into a red light, and Kura Sensei, another one of Kura Sensei's weaknesses is revealed, in that he's impatient when it comes to red lights. So, yeah. But in any case, after that whole ordeal of the last night, Nagisa decides that if he's going to become something that his parents would be proud of, the first step is to kind of take a little bit of the burden off of his mother. And to do that, he decides to start taking out the trash and making breakfast every morning, which his mother appreciates in her own way. What she actually says is that she couldn't care less about any of it, but it's clear that that's actual progress for her, because Nagisa is over to the moon, because she kind of just admitted to the fact that she doesn't care what he does anymore, as long as he does what makes himself happy. And he's over the moon for that. He's very happy that his mother finally approves of who he is, and now he can finally hold his head high as an assassin. So, yeah. This episode basically just establishes how crazy Nagisa's mother Hiromi actually is, and she does kind of mellow out by the end of the episode. But it should be noted that for the majority of this episode, it's clear that she was just kind of a little bit unhinged because of how unfairly life had treated her up to this point. So, yeah, it's clear that was a big point of friction for her, but now she's starting to overcome it, realizing that Nagisa is his own person. He can do what he wants. And Nagisa is taking the first step of money to finding out what he wants to be, because, well, truth be told, Nagisa still hasn't quite figured out what he wants to be, but what he knows is that he no longer wants to be an assassin, even though he has the aptitude for it. He doesn't really want to do that anymore. He just wants to find something that his parents will appreciate, and something that makes him happy. So, eventually he's going to find something that he can actually do as a career and eventually succeed at. But for right now, this is just kind of his starting trek for that. He hasn't quite figured out what he wants to do, but he's starting to narrow down his options. But in any case, that's my review of Assassination Classroom. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks down by always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. Also, I have a Patreon, so if you guys wanted to help support me and help fund future videos from me, then be sure to check that out as well. And if you want to see more videos from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to see more things that you like, then be sure to check out that one. But regardless of whether or not you do any or all of those things, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!